Imagine holding a book so dangerous that its author had to completely erase their own identity just to get it published. Like, no gender, no history.
Right, just a harsh, unyielding storm bound in paper.
Exactly. Welcome back to the Bibliophile channel, everyone. Before we open the cover on this incredibly rare artifact, I want to ask you to do us a quick favor.
Yeah, if you love dissecting forgotten histories and uncovering the hidden mechanics of classic literature, take a second right now to like this video.
And drop a comment below with your own takeaways as we go, and definitely subscribe to the channel. You absolutely do not want to lose track of our next deep dive.
You really don't.
Today, our mission is to examine the physical 1847 first edition of Wuthering Heights. Specifically, Volume 1 of the original 3-volume set.
Which is just a totally different experience than reading a modern paperback.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
We want to understand how Emily Bronte basically weaponized the very concept of isolation. And I really want to paint the picture for you because the physical object itself is, well, it's almost intimidating.
It really is.
The cover has this chaotic, swirling, marbled pattern. It's a mix of dark greens, deep blood reds, and these stormy grays that just bleed into each other.
Almost like oil slicked on water.
Right, exactly like that. And when you carefully open it, the heavy, blank pages are spotted and aged with what archivists call foxing. You can practically smell the decay of the 19th century paper. And then you hit the title page. The typography is stark, rigid, and completely uncompromising. It reads, Wuthering Heights, a novel by Ellis Bell in 3 volumes. Volume 1, London, Thomas Cotley Newby, publisher 72, Mortimer Street, Cavendish Square, 1847.
What's fascinating here is the deliberate void on that page. Emily Bronte's real name is entirely absent.
Right, completely gone.
By masking her gender and her personal history behind the pseudonym Ellis Bell, she forces you to confront the text on its own harsh terms. There is no authorial hand-holding here.
None at all.
You open that marbled cover and you step immediately into a hostile environment.
And that erasure of identity on the title page, it doesn't stop at the cover. Bronte immediately thrusts us into a world where identity, belonging, and basic social contracts are constantly under threat.
Yeah, she dismantles it right from page 1.
Okay, let's unpack this. We see this perfectly mapped out in the opening chapters through Mr. Lockwood's complete disorientation. We all know the basic setup, right? In 1801, Lockwood rents Thrushcross Grange and rides over to meet his new landlord, Mr. Heathcliff.
A fateful visit, to say the least.
Seriously. But what is vital here is how Bronte uses the physical architecture of the estate to completely dismantle Victorian social norms before the plot even really begins.
Absolutely. The architecture of Wuthering Heights operates as, well, an active antagonist. Lockwood observes early on that wuthering is a provincial adjective describing atmospheric tumult.
Atmospheric tumult, yeah.
The estate is entirely exposed to these fierce, bracing north winds. The landscape is so unforgiving that the trees are permanently stunted and slanted from the gales.
And the people inside are just as permanently slanted. Lockwood arrives expecting a polite, gentlemanly tenant-landlord exchange.
Which is hilarious in hindsight.
Right. Instead, he gets the 19th century equivalent of the most hostile Airbnb check-in imaginable.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Heathcliff is described as having the aspect of a dark-skinned gypsy, but he's dressed in the clothes of a gentleman, and he straight up refuses to open the gate.
He just glares at him.
Yeah, he speaks through closed teeth and tells Lockwood to walk in with a tone that explicitly implies, go to the deuce, which basically means go to hell.
A very warm welcome.
Right. And meanwhile, the elderly servant Joseph is muttering sourly about needing divine aid just to digest his dinner, and the yard is so utterly derelict that Lockwood notes cattle are the only hedge cutters.
The dark comedy of that scene is just brilliant, but, it masks a much deeper psychological reality.
Oh, for sure.
Lockwood, in this moment of extreme, almost delusional irony, actually thinks he and Heathcliff are a suitable pair to divide the desolation between us.
He actually thinks they're going to be best friends.
Exactly. He assumes he has stumbled into a fellow misanthropist's quiet heaven. But Wuthering Heights isn't just a geographical location. The unyielding, brutal landscape perfectly mirrors the psychological degradation of the people trapped within it.
And that geographic entrapment quickly becomes a literal one. During Lockwood's disastrous second visit, a massive snowstorm hits the moors.
He literally sinks up to his neck in snow.
Yeah, up to his neck. And he's forced to spend the night. This physical entrapment perfectly mirrors his descent into the family's psychological trap. Lockwood is pushed deeper into the house, into what he calls the penetralium.
Which is a highly specific, very deliberate word choice by Bronte.
Right, penetralium, meaning the innermost, most private, and usually darkest secret parts of a building or a sanctuary.
Mhm.
He is ushered into this bizarre old paneled bed that functions almost like a closet, like a literal wooden box within a room.
Talk about claustrophobia.
Exactly. And it is in this claustrophobic, secret space that he finds the Rosetta Stone of the entire novel scratched into the paint of the window ledge. It is just a single first name varied 3 ways.
Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, and Catherine Linton.
Yes.
Those 3 scratched names represent the past, the present, and the tragic destiny of the house. And it's accompanied by the margins of old religious books that have been written over and turned into a secret diary.
The margins were literally filled with her handwriting.
Right. The printed text, the authority of religion and society, has been literally overwritten by Catherine's wild, rebellious childhood thoughts.
Which is such a powerful image. And to decode those names, Lockwood manages to corner the housekeeper, Nellie Dean, back at his rental property. He practically begs her for the history of his landlord.
Which she is more than happy to provide.
True, Nellie agrees, but she immediately frames Heathcliff's entire existence as a cuckoo story. And I have to take a strong stance against Nellie's framing here. Wait, why a cuckoo? A cuckoo is a bird that lays its eggs in another bird's nest so the hatchling can violently kick the other baby birds out. Calling him a cuckoo implies malice, parasitism, and premeditation from day one.
I see what you mean.
But he was an innocent, traumatized child dragged from the streets of Liverpool against his will. The real parasite isn't Heathcliff. It's the rigid, unyielding class structure of the Earnshaw house that couldn't accommodate an outsider without tearing itself apart.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is a crucial distinction. The tragedy isn't that Heathcliff was inherently evil from birth.
Right.
The tragedy is the devastating impact of an unnatural disruption to a closed, highly fragile ecosystem. Mr. Earnshaw went on a trip to Liverpool and found this dirty, ragged, black-haired child wandering the streets.
Starving and speaking gibberish.
Exactly. Bringing this castaway home seems like an act of noble charity to a modern reader, but in the provincial world of the 18th century, it was an explosive threat to the entire social order.
Because by favoring Heathcliff, Earnshaw structurally displaces his own biological heir, Hindley. He doesn't just invite a disruption into the nest, he hands over the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly. Earnshaw forces this unpedigreed child into the household hierarchy. Nellie notes that Earnshaw's preferential treatment of Heathcliff was enough to make a fiend out of a saint.
Wow.
That single act of disruptive charity destroyed the existing ecosystem of the family. The house became an infernal place. The local curate literally stopped visiting because the atmosphere became so toxic and violent.
And this friction introduces the absolute core of the book. The intense, almost unnatural bond that forms between this so-called intruder, Heathcliff, and the daughter of the house, Catherine Earnshaw.
The iconic duo.
Yeah. Nellie paints this incredible picture of their feral childhood. She says Catherine had the bonniest eye and sweetest smile in the parish, but she was also incredibly wild and defiant.
She was a force of nature.
She really was. The worst punishment anyone could ever invent for her wasn't physical discipline. It was simply separating her from Heathcliff.
And when the father dies and the displaced son, Hindley, inherits the house, he immediately exacts his revenge. He degrades Heathcliff.
He strips him of his education.
Right, and reduces him to a farm servant. But this systemic oppression only galvanizes Catherine and Heathcliff's rebellion. They become a unified front against the entire world.
Just the two of them against everyone else.
Yeah, they exist in a state of pure, untamed nature on the moors, completely ignoring religious instruction and laughing at their punishments.
But then Bronte introduces the mechanism that destroys them. Thrushcross Grange. We all know they sneak over to the Grange to spy on the wealthy Linton children, and Catherine gets bitten by a guard dog.
Which is such a turning point.
It is. Let's look at how Bronte uses the Grange as a weapon of superficial socialization. Catherine is forced to convalesce there for weeks. The civilized world literally sinks its teeth into her and pulls her in.
It's a physical and psychological bite.
Exactly. When she returns to Wuthering Heights, she isn't the feral girl of the moors anymore. She arrives on a black pony wearing a long cloth habit, described as a dignified person with brown ringlets.
It is an act of profound structural betrayal.
Yeah.
The Heights is ancient, elemental, and exposed. The Grange is protected, soft, and artificial. By allowing yourself to be molded by the Grange, by accepting this veneer of Victorian civilization,
Yeah.
Catherine is severing her own elemental roots.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This brings us to the most terrifying philosophical moment in Volume 1, the foliage versus rocks speech.
Oh, this is the core of the whole novel.
Catherine is talking to Nellie, and she confesses her feelings about Edgar Linton, the polished gentleman she met at the Grange, versus Heathcliff. She says her love for Edgar Linton is like foliage in the woods that time will change, just as winter changes the trees. But her love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight necessary. And then she delivers that staggering line, "I am Heathcliff."
Such a powerful line.
And I want to pause here because modern pop culture has completely ruined this quote. It gets slapped on romance novel mood boards and Valentine's Day cards. But this isn't romance. It is a terrifying admission of obliterated identity.
It goes far beyond romantic attachment into absolute ontological dependence.
Yes.
Catherine is stating that her very existence is contingent upon Heathcliff. She says he is always in her mind, not as a pleasure, but as her own being.
It's almost parasitic in a way.
It is. She follows this up with a dream she describes to Nellie, which further proves your point. She dreams she goes to heaven, but she feels completely alienated.
She hates it.
She hates it. She cries so much that the angry angels literally fling her out, and she lands back on the middle of the heath on the top of Wuthering Heights. And when she lands there, she wakes up sobbing for joy.
She literally rejects paradise because her soul is incompatible with peace. Salvation itself is repulsive to her if it means being separated from her true, violent nature.
And that is the terrifying heart of the novel. Is this kind of absolute soul-merging connection actually a beautiful thing? Or is it a deeply destructive force?
I lean toward destructive.
Well, Catherine is essentially admitting that her nature cannot exist within the bounds of civilization, theology, or societal norms.
Yet, in a fatal miscalculation, Catherine attempts to partition her life. Despite this elemental bond, she decides to marry the civilized Edgar Linton.
Which makes no sense after what she just said.
I know, she wants to be the lady of the Grange. She arrogantly believes she can have Edgar's wealth and status and somehow use it to protect Heathcliff from her brother Hindley's abuse. She tries to keep her societal ambitions completely separate from her foundational wild nature.
And Heathcliff overhears only the part of this conversation where she says it would degrade her to marry him now. He runs away into a violent thunderstorm and vanishes. When he returns years later, the transformation is complete. It is the mirror image of Catherine's transformation at the Grange, but where hers was a capitulation to civilization, his is a weaponization of it.
The sources describe his return so vividly. He shows up at Thrushcross Grange as an adult. He looks intelligent. He has an upright carriage that suggests military service, and he has obviously acquired significant unexplained wealth.
He looks the part of a gentleman.
Right, but the text explicitly notes that a half-civilized ferocity still lurks in his depressed brows and eyes full of black fire.
He has learned the rules of the gentleman's world solely to dismantle it from the inside out.
And this is where Isabella Linton becomes such a fascinating mechanism in Volume 1. Edgar's sister becomes completely infatuated with Heathcliff. She operates as the ultimate proxy for the naive Victorian reader.
She totally does.
She looks at Heathcliff's brooding, violent exterior and thinks, a misunderstood romantic hero, I can save him. But Nellie tries to strip away that illusion immediately. Nellie gives Isabella a brutal warning.
Oh, it's such a harsh warning.
She says Heathcliff is a fierce, pitiless, wolfish man who would crush you like a sparrow's egg, Isabella, if he found you a troublesome charge.
Bronte is actively punishing the literary expectations of her audience through Isabella. Nellie knows exactly what was forged in the fires of Wuthering Heights. The gentlemanly exterior is just a tool.
So wait, is Heathcliff just a pure villain at this point? Or is he acting out of a twisted sense of justice because he was abused by Hindley and abandoned by Catherine? I look at his return and I don't see a simple mustache-twirling villain.
This raises an important question about his morality, for sure.
Right. I see a man executing a highly calculated, twisted form of justice. We cannot forget that Hindley treated him like a farm animal, completely stripping him of his humanity, and Catherine abandoned him for social status.
That trauma doesn't just disappear.
Exactly. So Heathcliff leaves, acquires wealth, and returns to use the very tools of the Victorian upper-class money, property, and patriarchal marriage laws to systematically tear down the people who humiliated him. He is using the master's tools to dismantle the master's house.
But the collateral damage of that dismantling is what makes it horrifying. Isabella ignores Nellie's warning and elopes with Heathcliff.
A huge mistake.
A terrible mistake. The sources provide a chilling reference to a letter. Isabella writes to Nellie just after her honeymoon at Wuthering Heights. She writes that she is already trapped in a house with no lights, sitting in misty darkness, realizing the terrible, irreversible mistake she made.
Poor Isabella.
She asks Nellie, how the devil could it be otherwise in her frightful isolation? Heathcliff doesn't love her. He despises her. He's merely utilizing her as a legal instrument to secure the Linton property and inflict agonizing pain on Edgar.
And all of this builds to a suffocating climax in Volume 1. The tension between Heathcliff's violent return and Edgar's weak, civilized outrage creates a pressure cooker that finally breaks Catherine's mind and body.
It just shatters her.
She falls fatally ill with what is described as a brain fever. But she isn't just catching a delicate Victorian fainting sickness, she actively induces it. She locks herself in her room, literally starves herself, and works herself into a frenzy, tearing the pillow with her teeth.
Her physical collapse is the direct biological result of attempting to partition an indivisible soul.
Wow, yeah.
She tried to maintain her social ambitions as the respectable lady of the Grange while keeping her elemental, wild nature anchored to Heathcliff. The human psyche simply cannot sustain that level of violent cognitive dissonance. Her mind and body give out under the impossible contradiction.
And as she is dying, Heathcliff manages to get into the Grange. His reaction perfectly encapsulates the entire ethos of the book. He doesn't offer a tearful, romantic goodbye.
Not at all.
He demands of Nellie, who is trying to manage the chaotic situation, he says, "Will you stay here, and am I to fight my way to you?" To reach the woman he loves, who is literally on her deathbed, his default instinct is physical combat. Love is completely indistinguishable from violence.
It is the eternal rocks beneath violently cracking open and destroying everything on the civilized surface.
And that is where our deep dive into the first volume of the 1847 text brings us. We started with the beautifully marbled, chaotic covers of a physical artifact, and it led us into an architectural and psychological trap where identity is obliterated by obsession.
It is a profound exploration of trauma, the weaponization of class, and the terrifying power of an unyielding will. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Lay it on us.
Think back to those scratched names Lockwood found on the window ledge in the old paneled bed. Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Heathcliff, Catherine Linton. In her desperate attempt to be all three of those women, to inhabit both the wild, untamed heath of her childhood and the civilized, respectable parlor of society, Catherine destroyed herself and everyone she touched.
Yeah, she really did.
Consider this. In our own lives, when we try to completely partition our wild foundational nature from our polite societal expectations, do we risk creating our own internal Wuthering Heights?
A storm inside ourselves, tearing apart the architecture of our own lives. What an incredible thought to end on. We want to know what you think. What stands out to you about this 1847 edition and the intense psychological mechanics Bronte employed?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Let us know down in the comments. And please, if you enjoyed this journey into the dark heart of the moors, like the video, share your thoughts, and subscribe to the Bibliophile channel so you are ready for the next deep dive. Thanks for listening, and keep reading.